Hey guys, it's Stephanie. Welcome back to the Cantina. Please feel free to subscribe, hit the like button, hit the bell for more content. Share away here. We share away here for love of Star Wars. Today's sort of a kind of a serious discussion about cultural terrorism, kind of throughout history, and destroying pieces of works of art that have been part of the cultural fabric for decades, like Star Wars. So get ready for the video. Hey guys, welcome back to the Cantina. Today is a kind of a serious talk about cultural genocide, and how SJWs are perpetuating that in the film industry. But I'm going to give you some examples. First off, I'm going to give you a quote from George Lucas. You read it in the beginning of the video, but I'm going to give you the quote real quick. People who alter or destroy works of art for profit or in an exercise of power are barbarians. Now we've seen, thank you, George Lucas, for that quote. Now we've seen all this throughout history. The destruction of the Library of Alexandria. What the Nazis did to German history and the teaching of it and the culture in Germany when they were in power for 12 years. We've seen the Soviets do it to Russian expression in art when they were in power in the Soviet Union. We've seen it everywhere. And these are acts of cultural genocide. Now, here's the thing. I'm going to compare what's going on with Star Wars to something that happened in 2001. March of 2001, the Buddha statues of Bamyan in the Bamyan Valley, they were built into a cliff between the years of 504 AD and 554 AD. They're very interesting and compelling mixes of Gandhara artwork. I don't know what that means because I don't study that stuff. But they've been there for decades, and they were in the Hazarjat Valley, 230 kilometers north of Kabul. And because the Taliban practices certain really, really strict form of Islam, they did not want any form of other philosophy worship around. And also the fact that the human form in artwork is prescribed in this form of Islam. Try to explain it to some of the Egyptians I know who fiercely protect their cultural heritage from millennia ago. So what they did is they blew up these two Buddhas. And this is a form of cultural genocide. All right. We've seen it in the 20th century. We saw it, the first true genocide of the 20th century, the murders and the genocide of the Armenians by the Turks during World War I. And then it just happened. The Ukraine with the Soviets, the Cultural Revolution in China, anything that inhibits the growth of culture, of art, of expression, of identity is a cultural genocide. And of course, the Germans and their issues with the Jewish people, which when you look at German history, how many Jewish people were so influential in their art, in their creative expressions. It's profoundly horrifying to me, because the moment you start messing with the culture, you start attacking the identity of humanity, of a group of humans, all right? And it's profoundly damaging to humanity itself to do that. So how does it relate to Star Wars? All right. As George Lucas said, if you destroy something, a work of art, for profit or an exercise of power, you are a barbarian. It started the moment he signed the papers to sell Lucasfilm to Disney. And first thing they did was tell him, you're not needed or wanted. We're not going to really keep you around as a consultant. Oh, and everything you gave us, we're going to put it out in the backyard behind Iger's office and set it all on fire. Second thing they did is get rid of the EU. Stories that have been part of Star Wars history for 40 years. Okay, look at Star Wars like this. Look at movies like this. They encompass the entire world of art. Painting, performance art, acting, dancing, singing, music, the CGI, 3D art, sculpture. I mean, if you think of it, anything that's art eventually ends up in a movie. Writing, okay. That is a form of self-expression, that is art, in my opinion. There are many great works of art as movies. Metropolis, Nosferatu, Gone with the Wind, Casablanca, Bridge over the River Kwai. I mean, I can name thousands of movies that are just embedded and engrossed in people's consciousness because the movie is the greatest expression of art of all time. It can also be used in a very bad way as the Russians and the Germans, you know, Battleship Potemkin, what a great piece of propaganda that was. And of course, Triumph of the Will, Leni Riefenstahl, Hitler's favorite film director, and what a great piece of propaganda that was. Okay, so why am I calling what Disney and Lucasfilm, Kathleen Kennedy did to Star Wars? Why am I comparing it to what happened to the Buddhas in Bamyan? Star Wars is something that has stood for decades as a piece of cultural heritage, something to be passed as it was to the next generation, unchanged. All right. So what they did was they went about, and you can see it in the stupid Galaxy of Adventures cartoons. They've taken the hero Luke Skywalker. He's a flawed hero, but nonetheless a hero, a guy that had to grow up, a guy that had to A, discover his identity, B, discover how to deal with his identity, and then deal with the present and understanding what his past meant. So you can't destroy the past no matter how hard you try, because it defines who you are in the moment. All right. They turn him into a fool. They turn Han into a dick and a fool. And they turn Leia into, from this woman who was already heroic in her own way, to this screeching, bitter, harpy hag. Because that's what they think an independent woman is. That's what they think being liberated is. Being a screeching, harpy hag. Okay, so they've already attempted to change the past. Get angry when we rebel. You know, adding characters that aren't needed or wanted. Vice Admiral Gender Studies. Rose Tico with her Maoist indoctrination speech at Canto Bight. You know, rewriting, you know, how Vader is perceived from being basically the absolute most evil thing in the galaxy to an anti-hero? No, that's not how the Force works. And it's not helping them. They're losing this fight. They go into hiding, and then they go into hiding. They can't defend themselves, so they go into hiding. And it is really fascinating to me to watch them do this. Now, why did they do this? Why? Because they know Star Wars is this piece of art, of literature, of monumental proportions. It is up there with any of the great movies that have ever been made. It is up there with any of the great stories that have ever been written. Le Morte d'Arthur, the Aeneid, the Odyssey, the Iliad, the Nordic sagas, Beowulf. And they want to indoctrinate their kids, Pablo Hidalgo's words, into their Star Wars. This is why they're cultural barbarians. This is why they're cultural terrorists. This is why they're basically kind of like the Taliban when they blew up the Buddhists at Bamyan. No, I'm not a Buddhist. but I respect other ways of worship and other ways of thinking. You know, when I was a kid, did I tell you guys this story? When I was a kid, I actually got to see King Tut's treasures at the Field Museum in 1976. My mom took me. And Egyptians I have met are so proud of their heritage, unchanging, and want to preserve it because it means something to them. What I find fascinating about Kathleen Kennedy is nothing about Star Wars means anything to her. She wants to use it to forward the Force's female shit. You know, Pablo Hidalgo and his ilk want to attack wealthy people, even though he's wealthy. You know, and they live in the open sewer of San Francisco. You know, it is a way for them to forward and, again, indoctrinate children into their Star Wars, for them to destroy the past, rewrite it, repackage it, rebrand it, and try to indoctrinate kids. But here's the deal. The parents are the ones that are going to take the kids to the movies. The parents don't like what they see. The parents aren't going. The collectors aren't buying their... Because when you're such a political hack, like Hidalgo, like Amy Vincent, like Daniel Jose Older, like Chuck Wendick, you cannot write a good, decent character. There's no development. You know, Ray is wooden. Kyle Ron's nothing but an emo douchebag, crybaby, spoiled brat. You know, Poe is... Who? Finn could have been interesting. Actually, Ray could have been interesting. But they're so worried about getting their message in. Remember Canto Bight, remember the Maoist lecture, that they can't write decent characters. They can't write decent stories. They're not, and honest to God, they're not even very good propagandists because you can see 1,000 miles away. In fact, when you can't show a leftist indoctrination video in China, like TLJ, like Soilo, in China, you have a problem, okay? I mean, there's a reason why they call women, you know, leftists like Kathleen Kennedy, Baijiao. That's an Asian word for white left. That is not a nice thing to call somebody. And also then there's banana Baijiao. You know, you've got, I think maybe if my friend Dan Watanabe sees this, he'll be able to explain that to me. But that's an Asian who's a lecturing sort of and falling in for the kind of racist implications, the sort of condescension towards minorities, which is kind of like what that means. You know, it don't sell in places like China. It don't sell in places like Korea. It don't even sell in Japan. Okay, they can see right through it. I mean, I've lived in Asia. I've lived all over the world. And this stuff doesn't sell, okay? Again, they're not even very good propagandists because they can't hide it. Now, yes, of course, there's been politics in Star Wars. But it wasn't badly written. And the politics, like in the prequels, had nothing to do beyond Newt Gunray with what was going on in the United States at the time. I've seen those movies 1,000 times. I don't feel like I want to choke somebody after watching them. All right? So here's the deal. We've got these cultural barbarians, these terrorists, these left-wing fascist Taliban destroying our cultural heritage. Star Wars is part of that. What do we do about it? We boycott. We don't buy the stuff. We basically keep our wallets shut, okay? We don't go to the movies. You know, when Mark Hamill, again, starts trashing the sequels, it looks like without consequence, that is something huge, all right? Because it looks like to me like we are getting through. We are on his side of this, not their side. They're the ones that think they know better, but no one knows better than George Lucas, okay? So anyway, I kind of want to talk a little bit about the cultural barbarians, the Taliban, SJW Taliban at Lucasfilm, what Star Wars is and what they've done to it, and, you know, give a little historical perspective. To me, it's a cultural genocide. It really, really is. And it's profoundly awful. When you think about it, what our kids don't get to see, what our kids don't get to experience, what our boys aren't allowed to have anymore. You know, the racist put down of white men, the misanders put down of men in general. That is genocide, okay? And I'm deadly serious about that. I don't get around with it because it is something, because I am a history major, and I take this stuff seriously. I've studied this my whole life. And it is time for the SJWs at Lucasfilm to end, because eventually it'll all go away. And if they don't believe that, Captain Marvel is going to go down in history as one of the biggest flops outside of Solo. And the boycott of Disney Star Wars is going on. That's all we can do. Voice our opinions and not open our wallets. Because ultimately, in this battle between good versus evil, and we're the good guys, the market will decide. And it will decide in our favor. And it will decide against them. So this is Steph. I'll see you around the galaxy. See you around the cantina. Be sure to tip those Wookiee bartenders 20%. Remember, don't start a fight in the bar because Wookiee bouncers are hard to stop. And they cause a lot of damage. So see you around. Hey guys, well I hope you enjoyed the video. Please feel free to subscribe and thank you for stopping by. Hit that bell for more content. Hit the like button. Share away here. We share away for the love of Star Wars. And I might be back later for another video. But I'll see you around the galaxy. See you around the cantina. And have a good afternoon.